All right. Thank you guys for everyone hopping on. My name's James. I'm the CEO of Ironvest. As you guys know, we've built an employee benefits marketplace for Trade Hounds so that you guys can have access to all of the benefits you need from health insurance, payroll, tax, retirement planning, and a host of other solutions. Today, we are welcomed and partnered with Zach Baker and Heather from isolved, our payroll providers, and they wanted to come in and have a conversation regarding what trade employers must get right. And so I'll just pass it over to you, Zach, Heather. Again, we appreciate you guys hopping on.
James, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here today. Excited to get to talk about a really important conversation, especially in the trades, specifically on workforce classification. We're going to be talking a lot about a number of different things that I'm sure are relevant to the people that are on this call and people that might be watching some of the recordings that might be sent out. But today I'm joined by my partner in crime, Heather Plancarte. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi guys, it's so nice to be able to interact with you guys today. So I help iSolved and support people like Zach on our HR services and really being able to help small businesses, specifically in the trade markets, of just staying out of hot water from a compliance standpoint. So we're excited to share some new information to you, hopefully that will be able to help guide you through your classification process for your business.
Appreciate you, Heather. My name is Zach Baker. I'm one of the lead consultants here at iSolved as well, overseeing a lot of the Trade Hounds and iSolved situation, and excited to get to have this conversation. So, as we mentioned, really the purpose of our conversation today is to talk about workforce classification, specifically in the trade industry. I'm sure many of you have seen this as a conversation. Maybe some of you are contractors today, 1099. Maybe some of you are W-2 employees. Maybe some of you are owning companies that are employing W-2s and have some 1099 contractors on the side. And you've been asking the question, what is a contractor and what is an employee and what are the differences between the two? The challenge is that there's been a ton of IRS changes over the last several years. There have been some audits, there have been some changes, and they have led to a little bit of a mucky area and some gray area created, especially in the trades that we'll discuss and break down today. We're going to start off by going through some of the IRS guidelines and really what does the IRS look to specifically when evaluating is an individual a 1099 contractor or a W-2 employee within the business. So Heather, I'm going to kick it over to you and you jump in.
All right, I appreciate it. And that kudos to you for using the correct language. So often we hear 1099 employee, and that is almost like a double negative because a 1099 is a 1099 contractor. They are not an employee. So what does that mean? A 1099 contractor are going to control their own work. They can control their own hours. They don't take any direction from you as an employer or a hiring aspect of it. When you have a 1099 or a W-2 employee, that is someone that you're hiring. You're having to pay payroll taxes on it, but you get to have control over presentation, direction, and control over the employees, being able to set work hours, provide resources to that employee to set them up for success. So we're also going to talk about, so you've got two different classifications. You have a 1099 and then you have a W-2. We're going to talk about some of the consequences of misclassification. If you misclassify someone, there are going to be things that the IRS and the Department of Labor that can come back to essentially haunt you. Things like back taxes, penalties. If benefits are offered to a W-2 employee and that 1099 should be a W-2, you could be subjected to having to pay that as well. And then also, what is the evaluation criteria? How do I know? How do I decipher if I'm hiring somebody that should be a 1099 or a W-2?
Perfect. All of these are incredibly important. We're excited to get to break down. So we're going to start things off specifically into going into evaluating how does the IRS make that classification distinction? Are they a 1099 contractor or are they a W-2 employee? There are really three factors to consider: behavioral control from the employer, the financial control, and then the actual relationship between the individual that is providing the work and the employer that is paying for the work. Heather, would you mind giving a little bit of background into these three?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are the three main points in the IRS decisions on figuring out who is who and how to classify them. So things like the behavior control is what I was referencing earlier is, are you giving them instructions? Are you providing them a handbook? Are you giving them supervision? Are you determining their hours of operation? Are you doing their scheduling for them? So in instances, a lot of times we'll see this in beauty care and salons. Are they a W-2 employee or are they a 1099? A 1099 employee in that case, that person, that hairstylist would be setting their own hours, setting their own appointments within that salon for that chair versus a situation where an employee, the salon would provide all of the tools, the hair dryers, curling irons, all of that. They would book the appointments and they would determine when that hairstylist is supposed to be there, whether it's 8 to 5 or 10 to 7, whatever the case may be. The other second piece of the puzzle here is financial control. How are you paying them? Are you writing them a check? Is it going through a payroll? Are you doing the appropriate documentation at the end of the year if it's an employee that you're doing the W-2s or doing your 1099 filings? The other piece that a lot of people don't realize is whether or not the profit or loss risk is associated. So if it's a key person within your business that would have great and significant financial causes to you, if that person left, they're probably going to be a W-2 employee. The other piece too is if you provide all of their tools that they're going to need. So there's a cost and a financial control in determining a W-2 versus a 1099 contractor. The other piece is the relationship that you have with that person. Are you providing them benefits? Do you have a contract with them, an employment contract? Are they a core business role? Are they a manager? These are things that we have to consider if they're a 1099 or a W-2. And oftentimes, so often, you'll be interviewing someone and that person's going to come to you and say, well, I'm a 1099. There's a big misconception on who makes that decision on the classification. It is you as the business owner that makes that decision and is held responsible to making sure that they are classified correctly.
Absolutely. Let's take a deep dive into each of these. We're going to start off by actually looking into the behavioral control aspect of what the IRS is reviewing. Really, there are a number of different things to consider, specifically employee criteria, training that the employer is providing to the individual, as well as what is the documentation that the employer needs to gather, whether they are a 1099 contractor, W-2 employee. Heather, which piece of these do you want to dive into first?
Well, let's take it from the top. So we're already starting to dive into these sectors here. So behavior control. How much direction are you giving that employee? How much supervision are you over that worker's activities and the methods? So let's break it down here. Let's take a construction company. Are they bringing in their own tools? Are you providing their tools? Are you providing them a supervisor that's going to be overseeing their work? Or are they going to be working independently from the rest of your crew that is considered a W-2? Are you giving trainings on to that contractor of how you want things done, the way it should be done, your quality level? Or is that worker determining what the quality level is because it's their business of servicing you?
At the same time, one thing that I always say whenever I talk to clients in the trades, it is on you as the employer to provide the timetable and to provide the end result and to tell your individual, if you're hiring them as a 1099, what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by. The behavior and the process and the way that it gets done, if they are a true 1099 contractor, is up to that individual, meaning you can't require them to be attending work at a specific time. You're not going to be having them show up at 8 o'clock and clocking out at 5 o'clock like all of the others that are coming to work with your W-2 employees. And then at the same time, is the behavior of your contractor mimicking or mirroring the type of work that your W-2 employees are doing? You can't have one person classified as one and another person classified as the other, and yet they're both providing the same type of work, the same job, and the same outcome. You need to have a delineation so that if you are ever audited or if anyone ever comes knocking and asking questions, you can explain the differentiators and how you led to those decisions. It can't just be this is what was being done before, or this is what the employee, hence the word, or the individual wanted to be classified as. It is your responsibility as the employer to make that distinction.
Yeah, and even let's take it one more step here, real quick, Zach, is determining if you fire that person. So if you have a 1099 contractor, you can fire that person for any reason. If you're not happy with what their schedule looks like, if you're not happy with the quality that they're producing, you can fire them with no explanation. But on a W-2, you're going to have correct documentation because those are things that are going to need to be shown if they go and file for things like a unemployment claim, or if they feel that they've been discriminated against. We need to make sure that there's a paper trail to show that you have been in compliance with the law as you've gone through. Have you given performance reviews? Have you put them on a plan? These are all things that to consider when you have a W-2 employee on the differences of being able to attract and retain.
At the same time, there needs to be transparency with what the classification needs to be. I'll never forget, I graduated high school. I was 18 years old. I took a job. It was, just an average job. I was answering the phones, doing the basic grunt work of a white collar job. And I had no idea that they were employing me as a 1099 contractor. I had no idea that my taxes weren't getting taken out of my check. I didn't know. I was 18 years old. If you have an individual like that, that doesn't know what their distinction is, and you were to let them go, and they then try to claim for unemployment, they start posting on various platforms about the employment that they had at your company. Those are things that can send up red flags within the IRS and can trigger an audit that they can now evaluate the other aspects of your business and put you at some severe risk. So these are some things to keep in mind. All right, diving into the second piece, which is the financial control. Heather, do you mind going into this for me?
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about this payment tools and risk. So this is a really easy way to look at things. Is a 1099 contractor is going to be paid by a project or a milestone. So if you hire somebody to come in and put the framing of the house up, you're paying them to complete that project, or you're rewarding them for hitting specific milestones based, let's say, a time frame that you have committed to your client on. They bring their own equipment, as we talked about. They're bringing their own tool bags. They're bringing their own trucks. They're bringing everything that they need. You provide nothing for them. And the risk is that there's a profit or a loss possible there. Okay. And what that means is you have paid them to do a job and they don't show up and finish that job. There's no recourse technically in regards to an employee or a non-employee situation there. Now, from a W-2 employee, you're going to have them paid out on an hourly or a salary wage. You're going to provide them all the tools to do all of the framing. You're going to provide the wood. You're going to provide the hammers, the nails, screwdrivers, everything that you're going to need for that. And when they say no financial risk, there's no financial risk in regards to there's repercussions if there are not completing the jobs and the responsibilities to the level that both parties have agreed to.
There's not much more to add to this. This is pretty much black and white. This is the easiest thing for both you to succeed on and for you to fail on because there's not a lot of gray area on the financial independence aspect. Moving into the last piece, and I think this is really the one that gets missed the most often. I'm not sure if you would agree, Heather, but it's really the relationship of the individual to the employer that is either hiring them as an employee or as a 1099 contractor.
100%. So these are things that you want to make sure that you're asking yourself. How much of an impact on my business does this person have? How do I want to have control or not have control? Am I outsourcing this? Or am I having someone I am hiring to help me do this within my organization? Am I providing training for them? Am I providing evaluations and feedback as we go along? And then also being able to document the control features and functionalities of what is being expected from a legal compliance and being able to defend your decision on how you classify them.
At the same time, if you do have a 1099 contractor on your payroll or within the organization providing work, the way that new legislation that was passed a couple years ago dictates is that this should not be their only source of income. They should be doing this as a true contractor, taking on multiple different jobs. If their relationship to you as the employer or as the business owner is that's their sole aspect of their income and they're truly operating as if they are employed by the organization, that's a relationship that should be dictated as a W-2 employee, not as a 1099 contractor. 1099 contractors are your guys that will come in, guys or gals that will come in for a specific job, work that job till completion. Once that job is completed, they will move on to the next project. That project might be with your organization. You can have repeat contractors that are performing multiple jobs and that are working for you throughout the course of the year. But do they have other opportunities that they're taking advantage of? Are they leveraging their own tools, their own equipment, and they are running a true business and being a contractor out for hire? Those are some things to consider about the relationship.
And let's take it one more step, Zach. Is that person becoming a key and intricate part of your business? That if you lost them, that there would be significant impact on your ability to run your business. So that is something also to take in consideration as well.
Absolutely. I think that's one last point on this that we should make. Just because they are a 1099 today does not mean that they should be a 1099 tomorrow, a year from now, or 5 years from now. The nature of their relationship to your business can change over time. And the evaluation of not just your new individuals that you hire, whether contractor or employee, but you need to be evaluating your full workforce to make sure that across the board, you are staying compliant.
100%.
All right. Looking into really, why is this all important? We're talking about classifications. We're talking about making sure that, Zach, Heather, I have a 1099, I have a W-2. I've been running it the exact same way my whole time in business. Nothing's ever happened. What really is the importance for me as the business owner? Well, glad you asked. There are some risks that are involved, or we wouldn't be having this conversation, and we wouldn't be needing to have this topic even covered at a complete level. There are a number of things that you are going to see. First and foremost, there are potential fines exceeding $1,000 per misclassified worker. We are going to show you some examples later down the road of where these numbers can get pretty high. And if you're just thinking, I'm a small business, I only have a few employees, this isn't relevant for me, buckle up. You're going to be disappointed with the answer. Heather, would you mind talking about the rest of these points for me?
Absolutely. Zach. Significant tax liabilities. So for instance, if they should have been a W-2 and you should have been paying the employer taxes and have not, those are things that are going to catch up to you. And that can add up significantly in a very quick period of time. So things like Social Security and Medicare taxes, interest unpaid taxes. Again, nothing is when we're talking about the government, as it accrues, there's going to be interest on all of this as you go along. And some of this can be on a daily basis, it can accumulate. Potential lawsuits from misclassified workers looking for benefits that they should have been entitled to and protections. So, for instance, if you have provided health insurance for all of your W-2 employees, that is going to be a benefit that will have to be backtracked and accounted for. And the bigger piece of this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize the big impact that it can have is the decreased moral trust that you're going to have with your employees. Are they classified correctly? Are they entitled to benefits that they didn't realize that they were entitled to? And when that mindset kicks in to any worker, it's going to impact the amount of productivity and the retention that they're going to have. If they find out, wait a minute, I think I'm misclassified. I'm not going to be producing at my highest level until that I know I am being taken care of, my family's being taken care of. And it's going to create doubt. It's going to create those opportunities that they go out on to Google reviews and put negative reviews out there on your business. And so the impact is just going to continue to snowball.
At the same time, on the morale, on the trust, many of you, anyone that's ever owned a business, and I own one myself, you can understand that there are both hard costs and soft costs to everything that is being done within the business. And while you might not see the decrease in morale on a profit and loss sheet, you will see it on your ability to be productive, on the ability to win contracts, and on your ability to attract new employees and even contractors to your jobs, to your business, and to retain the ones that you have. If there becomes a issue, whether it's with classification or what have you, with one of the people that is in your employ on your payroll or that is being involved in a project in any way, shape, or form, that can create an issue where projects are now delayed and then the hard costs start happening. One of the other pieces, as we just talked about, is that there is a totality of the circumstances that really are being analyzed by not just the IRS. I think that, we actually should have done a better job at the beginning of this in mentioning it's not just federal, but there are state-specific laws and mandates that are in here as well. It's not just the IRS that is reviewing you. It is the various state or states that you operate in. And depending on where you have your projects, you have to make sure that you are managing and maintaining those states' laws as well. Heather, would you mind diving into this graph that we have here and explaining what is being shown?
Absolutely. And we've talked a few of these things through already, but let's talk about a couple of the highlights and reinforce that. So things like the degree of permanence of the work relationship. If there's a doubt that you're going to be creating that opportunity for that worker to look at other places of employment. You're going to be looking at the nature and degree of control by the potential employer. We're talking about what is determining the classification. We're going to be talking about the totality of the skill and initiative. Zach just brought that up, is it will impact on the level of skill that you're going to be hiring. And we're also looking at the extent to which the work is performed, at that integral part of your business. If they're misclassified and they go somewhere else, what is the impact on that? What is the impact of you being able to grow your business? What is the impact on the amount of time you're going to be spending dealing with the audits and pulling paperwork and having to do responses back to attorneys and the different entities? So it's not just the employee loss of productivity, but it's also falls onto the business and the teams that are managing those businesses. So let's keep thinking about it's just not, to Zach's point, hard costs, but it's the soft costs, which can have a even longer trajectory of impact on your business than what a financial. And not only that, but I don't know about you, but any small business that I've either owned or been a part of, any type of additional cost can have a major impact of whether or not I can make the payroll the next month, or I can pay for the tools and the resources that I need in order to be able to complete this contract. So again, let's keep talking about the snowball effect because it's really easy just to hone in on one piece of the factor, but we really got to keep focused on the bigger picture of this.
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier that anybody that thinks that this might just be something more important for the large organizations or maybe not important for me, you might be disappointed. So here's some examples and actually just some facts and stats for you to consider. According to the National Employment Law Project, essentially about 10 to 30% of businesses have at some point or are currently misclassifying their employees as 1099 contractors. This is a massive issue across the board. It's led to the Department of Labor recovering $42 million of back taxes specifically for misclassified workers last year. $42 million is not an insignificant sum. And it is a way that that the federal government is leveraging getting some of their money back from some of the initiatives that they've had over the last several years. Companies are facing penalties of up to $1,000 per misclassified worker with true potential criminal penalties for willful violations. I'm sure, Heather, you've ran into this. I've ran into this too, where especially a new business trying to just make ends meet, keep the lights on, sees an opportunity to potentially save some money by hiring somebody as a 1099 contractor and not having to pay the taxes that are associated with a W-2 employee. I implore you, I beg you, I've told every client I've ever talked to in this regard, do not skip following the letter of the law to save some money today. It will cost you tomorrow.
If there
Specifically,
is
oh yeah,
even the slightest hint that you made a decision not in the best interest of the law and for the person that you are hiring, there is significant jail time that can be associated with this.
and we will show you an example of one very recently that faced this. On this point as well, we're talking about the trades. The gig economy is obviously a part of this, but has grown 15% annually since 2022. And the trades are really the backbone. I know, Heather, you say this all the time, having grown up in the trades, and me as well. It's the backbone of our economy. It's increasing the urgency of proper, not just contractor management, but proper classifications of workers to ensure that the individuals that are actively completing projects are classified in the correct way. Businesses can be liable for up to 41.5% of the contractor's wages and back employment taxes. This is a significant amount of money. I know that if you're maybe unlike me, I don't exactly have that much money lying around in my back pocket all the time. This can be a real big detriment to your business, as you can see here with the specific numbers. And the industries most affected include construction, professional services, healthcare, and transportation. What that means as well is it's not just the industries that are most affected, but it's the industries under the greatest microscope that are being evaluated the most. Example, probably everybody on this call. Heather, anything that you wanted to add before we jump into some real world examples?
Zach, to your point is with our small businesses, the backbone of our economy. It is so easy to get focused in on growing your business and doing revenue generating opportunities and finding contracts and fulfilling those, that this is something that can easily fall through the cracks and it can snowball. So once you get one audit with any of the organizations or governing bodies, it will open up Pandora's box for your entire business to be evaluated and audited. So it's not just one audit you're going to be looking at, it's going to be a multitude of audits. I always joke around when I talk about my teenager and saying, look, just keep on the straight and narrow because you don't want mom getting up into your crawl space. That's exactly the same mentality with this is let's keep making sure that we're asking the right questions, understanding what the impact is so that we don't get any government agencies up into your business.
Absolutely. Our last piece that we want to cover here is to just show you that this is not just a hypothetical. This is happening every single day. It's been happening for the last several years. And as the government, as the IRS, the federal government, and states have enacted new laws, it is becoming more and more relevant each and every day. You're seeing some examples here, and I won't read into all of these here. Some of these are some extreme. As you can see on that last bullet point, we had a business owner that actually had to face some prison time for misclassifying their workers intentionally in order to avoid paying payroll taxes. But across the board, you're seeing not just large companies, and there you have some where they have 400 employees, 700 employees. But this third bullet point is somebody who just misclassified 50 workers. They're not just looking for the larger organizations. However, if you are one, I would make sure that you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. But it's across the board, anyone in this industry that is misrepresenting the employees that they have as contractors. This is a risk and it can actually affect your business. So make sure that you are doing it properly. Heather, anything else to add on this topic before we actually dive into maybe where iSolved and this partnership can help?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another thought process, Zach. It doesn't just affect your business, it's going to affect your household. And so it is not just a business impact, it is a deeply personal impact on. And any of us that have ever been involved with running a business and creating a business, there it is a personal blood, sweat, and tears that go into that. So I want to make sure that we understand that. And even when you look at this, you look at these larger companies that have bigger bandwidth, bigger resources, they can misstep. And if they can misstep, it is so easy for someone who's a one-person shop or only has a couple of employees to make that very same mistake just because you don't have the bandwidth. So that's where, as we're going to talk a little bit through, is being under the same understanding that I am in my household is I'm going to hire somebody to come in and put those dimmers in my home, and I'm going to outsource that because that's not my strength for me. And I want the additional protection for my home to make sure if something were to happen that my family is protected. It's the same way as when you're outsourcing some of these resources, that essentially it is a very inexpensive insurance policy for your business to be able to make sure that you're classifying people correctly.
Absolutely. Now, we've taken about a half hour to, I'm sure, scare many of you. And you might be wondering, Zach, Heather, what do we do from here? Well, we're here to actually provide you a solution as well. So here at iSolved, we work tremendously to provide our clients with the solutions they need, not just to handle this HR related issue, which is massive, but we can really support the full gambit of HR related strategies, policies, and initiatives that you might have within your business on the classifications of employee size. As you see here, we can provide through our outsourced HR services a real expert guidance on the classification of the employees that you have and the 1099 contractors. Heather, I got to be careful about getting that verbiage right myself. We can provide the guidance that you need to ensure that across the board, all of the individuals that you have providing work for the projects, the services, and business that you have are classified correctly, they're documented correctly, and as new laws, legislation, and risks to your organization take place year in and year out, we are providing the proactive risk mitigation that you need. I won't go into each of these bullet points here. However, if you are interested in learning a little bit more and having a conversation with Heather or myself, please reach out. What you will find on the new employee benefits market page place of Trade Hounds is a link. If you go into your app, click on the tool belt, scroll all the way to the bottom, and on the right-hand side, you should see the employee marketplace. Click on that. You should find all of the services that are available to you as Trade Hounds users that are available through the marketplace. If you click on payroll, you will find us. You will find some information on iSolved, some information on our services, and a link for you to schedule a meeting with myself and Heather so that we can evaluate and have a conversation about the nuances within your business. What are the risks that you're having? What are the challenges that you're experiencing? Not just on the payroll side. We haven't mentioned payroll once until now, but within the HR ecosystem of the business, we can discuss what it looks like and also take that work off of your plate. Because as Heather mentioned, your responsibility and job is to be focused on revenue generating activities. Let us take this work off of your plate. That way you can be assured that when you're out and growing your business, picking up new projects, contracts, we are managing the back end for you successfully. Heather, is there anything that you wanted to add to that before we sign off?
I think the big piece of it is we want to be able to allow you to go home, have peace of mind that your business is covered along with your families.
Amen. Hope that this was a valuable content. And if anybody has any questions, reach out.
No, we really appreciate you guys hopping on and having this conversation. Even me alone with having some 1099 employees have learned quite a bit.
1099 what?
1099 workers. Yes. It is something that even me having to go in and make sure I'm classifying my employees correctly. And so I appreciate you guys hopping on. And again, great call out, Zach, on how to find where to get access to you guys. Again, just Trade Hounds by ironvest.com/payroll, or just click on the button on the marketplace. But greatly appreciate you guys, and more to come as we continue to build this partnership. So thank you guys.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.